This is a podcast about understanding counseling and how it works in everyday life. In this episode, we'll explore how patterns show up across daily life, often in ways people recognize long before they ever describe them. Most people notice patterns not because they sit down to analyze themselves, but because the same situations keep producing the same reactions. You might notice it at work, in relationships, or in how you respond to pressure. The details change, but the feeling is very much familiar. For example, you might find yourself becoming tense before meetings, quiet after disagreements, or usually tired after certain social situations. On their own, these moments don't stand out, but over time, they start to feel repetitive. Have you noticed reactions that seem to follow you into different parts of your life? Patterns often show up first in the body, a sense of tightness before speaking up, a drop in energy when responsibility increases, a rush to resolve things when there is uncertainty. These responses usually happen before conscious thought catches up. By the time you reflect on them, the pattern has already played out. This is where everyday life gives people clues. You might notice that you take on extra work even when you don't want to, or that you avoid certain conversations even when they matter, or that you feel responsible for keeping things smooth around you. These are not isolated habits, they're expressions of how you manage stress, connection, and uncertainty. Early in the series, we explored anxiety, emotion regulation, and boundaries. These concepts become more visible here. Anxiety often shows up as anticipation. Regulation shows up in how quickly you recover, and boundaries show up in how much you take on before you feel stretched. These are not separate issues, they are different angles on the same pattern. What makes patterns hard to see is that they feel normal. They develop gradually and are reinforced by familiarity. You may even receive positive feedback for them. Being reliable, being calm, being accommodating. Over time, the cost becomes clearer than the benefit. Patterns also travel across settings. Someone who overextends at work may do the same in friendships. Someone who withdraws during conflict may do so both at home and professionally. The context changes, but the response remains consistent. Where do you notice in your life the same response showing up in different areas of your life? Counseling works with these patterns by slowing them down. Not to label them, but to make them visible. In everyday life, reactions happen quickly because situations move quickly. Counseling creates space to notice what usually goes unnoticed. Importantly, patterns are not flaws. They are learned ways of managing experience. At some point, they were very useful. They reduced risk, preserved connection, or helped you to cope. Over time, the context changes, but the pattern remains. Recognizing a pattern does not require a crisis. Often, people arrive at this awareness simply because they are tired of repeating the same cycle. The repetition itself becomes the signal. The perspective shifts the question from what's wrong here to what keeps happening. That shift reduces self blame and increases curiosity. Patterns are easier to understand than problems because they are observable. Everyday life continues to offer feedback, relief when plans are cancelled, tension before certain interactions, a sense of calm in specific environments. These responses are not random, they reflect how well a situation fits your capacity and boundaries. Counseling supports this noticing, but the patterns themselves exist outside of the counseling room. They are already active in daily routines, relationships, and decisions. Counseling simply helps people listen to what is already happening. In the next episode, we'll continue this by looking at what counseling offers over time, not as a fix, but as a process that helps people relate differently to these patterns as they show up in ordinary life. That's the scope of this episode. Each episode focuses on one specific theme, and this was it. We'll leave it there for now and move on in the next episode.